The morning sun painted the sidewalks of San Diego with golden light when Michael James Thompson felt his life crumbling over the phone. His hands trembled as he held his cell phone against his ear, cycling nervously along Harbor Drive toward his office. "No, Mom, I can't keep pretending everything's okay," he shouted into the phone, his voice heavy with years of contained frustrations. 32 years managing this family company, and for what? So you can treat me like any other employee? The cool morning Pacific breeze cut across his face as he pedaled faster, trying to escape the conversation that had started as a simple morning call and transformed into the most intense discussion of his life. Michael was a 6'1" man with slightly wavy blonde hair dancing in the wind, blue eyes that normally conveyed confidence but now reflected pure anguish. "Michael, son, you're overreacting." His mother's voice sounded distant, as it always did when he tried to express his feelings. "Your father built this for you, for the family?" "No," he interrupted, stopping abruptly at the red light on Fifth Avenue. "Dad built this for himself, and you continue treating every decision I make as if I were a child playing businessman." A tear rolled down his face, something that hadn't happened since adolescence. Michael Thompson, founding partner of the largest organic seafood chain in the country, was crying there, vulnerable on his bicycle, in the middle of one of San Diego's busiest avenues. "And you? What would you do if you discovered your entire life was built on others' expectations? Would you be capable of throwing it all away for a moment of true freedom?" The light turned green, and Michael shot forward like a bullet, his legs pumped with desperate force, as if he could pedal away from 32 years of emotional suffocation. The phone still glued to his ear. He heard his mother's anguished voice calling his name, but her words mixed with the noise of traffic and the deafening sound of his own heart. That's when everything changed. A golden retriever, one of those dogs that are the emotional heritage of every American neighborhood, was chasing a seagull in an innocent morning dance. The animal crossed the bike lane exactly when Michael, blind with emotion and speed, tried to swerve. The world slowed down. Michael felt the front wheel of his bike slip, his body being thrown forward. The cell phone flew from his hand, disappearing among the cars. His last memory was the sensation of flying, free as he'd never been, before everything became darkness. When the world made sense again, Michael was sitting on the curb, the bicycle destroyed a few meters away. His head was throbbing, and a metallic taste dominated his mouth. People approached, blurred faces of concern, voices offering help. "Sir, are you okay? Should we call an ambulance?" Michael looked at his own dirty hands, at the torn dress shirt, at the dress shoes now covered in mud. He tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Not because he couldn't speak, but because he didn't know who the person was who should answer. He stood up staggering, politely refused the offered help, and began to walk. He didn't know where, didn't know why. He just walked, leaving behind a life that suddenly seemed to belong to someone else. The following hours were a confused blur for Michael. He walked through downtown San Diego like a lost ghost among the living. Each attempt to access his memories resulted in a cutting headache, as if his mind had put a safety lock on his own thoughts. He stopped in front of a storefront and observed himself. The reflection showed a man of elegant appearance, even disheveled. Messed-up blonde hair, confused blue eyes, a stubble that couldn't hide the aristocratic bone structure of his face. He wore expensive clothes, but couldn't remember where he had bought them, or why. "Can I help you?" A female voice interrupted his reflections. Michael turned and saw a woman of approximately 28 years, brown hair tied in a practical ponytail, kind green eyes that observed him with genuine concern. She wore an apron with the name Seaside Diner embroidered on the chest and carried a thermal bag. Michael hesitated. How to explain that he didn't know who he was? "I'm lost." The woman studied him for a moment. It was easy to see he wasn't a common homeless person. Despite his disheveled appearance, there was something refined in his manners, in the way he spoke. "My name is Emma," she said, extending her hand. "I work here at the diner on the corner. You look like you need a hot coffee and a meal." Michael shook her hand, feeling a strange sensation of security in that simple touch. "Michael," he said automatically, then frowned. How did he know that was his name? Emma Rodriguez was a daughter of East Los Angeles, raised between the smell of homemade bread and the sound of classic rock on the kitchen radio. At 28, she worked as a waitress at Seaside Diner, a small but cozy restaurant in the Gaslamp Quarter, known for serving the best clam chowder in the area and treating each customer like family. "Come on," she said, indicating the direction with her head. "Let's sort this situation out." "What kind of person are you?" "One of those who walks past someone in difficulty, or like Emma, who extends a hand, even without knowing the person's story." The Seaside Diner was exactly what the name suggested, a place where time seemed to pass. More slowly, yellow walls decorated with old family photos, wooden tables marked by time, and the unmistakable aroma of homemade seasoning floating in the air. It was like entering a beloved aunt's house. "Sit there and I'll get something for you to eat," said Emma, indicating a table in the corner near the window. Michael obeyed, observing the movement around him. There were some scattered customers, an elderly man reading the newspaper, two friends chatting animatedly, a young student with books spread across the table. Everyone seemed at ease, as if that place were an extension of their own homes. Emma returned with a steaming plate of fish and chips, creamy mashed potatoes, grilled vegetables, and a fresh salad with ranch dressing. The aroma made Michael's stomach growl loudly, reminding him that he didn't know when he had last eaten. "Eat as much as you want," she said, sitting in the chair across from him. "Don't worry about payment now." Michael picked up the fork and took the first bite. The flavor exploded in his mouth in a way that surprised him. It wasn't just the fact that he was hungry. There was something familiar in those seasonings, something that touched a deep part of his memory that remained intact. "It's delicious," he said, and Emma smiled. "My grandmother's recipe," she explained. "She always said that food made with love feeds more than just the stomach." For some reason, this phrase made Michael stop chewing. A fleeting image passed through his mind. A large, modern, empty kitchen, him eating alone, sophisticated dishes that didn't taste like home. "Do you remember anything?" asked Emma, noticing his expression. Michael shook his head. "Fragments. Like I'm looking at someone else's life through a fogged window." They stayed in silence for a few minutes, just the sound of other customers and the radio playing soft jazz in the background. Emma watched him while he ate, trying to decipher the mystery before her. "Can I ask a question?" she said. Finally, Michael nodded. "Do you have a place to stay?" The question hung in the air like an unspoken invitation. Michael looked at his own wrists, searching for a watch that wasn't there, at the empty pockets of his wrinkled dress pants. "No," he admitted. "I have nowhere to go." Emma worked the rest of the day with Michael on her mind. There was something about that man that intrigued her deeply. It wasn't just his appearance, although he was undeniably attractive with those expressive blue eyes and disheveled blonde hair, but rather the contradiction he represented. His clothes, even wrinkled, were clearly expensive. His vocabulary was refined, his manners polite, but he was there, lost like a child. When her shift ended at 10 at night, she found him sitting in the same place, looking out the window with an empty expression that broke her heart. "Michael," she called softly. He turned, and she noticed there was a vulnerability in those eyes that wasn't just from memory loss. It was something deeper, older. "I was thinking," she said, drying her hands on her apron. "We have a small room in the back of the diner. My Uncle Joe used to sleep there when he worked late. It's not much, but it has a bed, a small bathroom." Michael interrupted her. "I can't accept. You don't even know me." "Exactly," said Emma, smiling. and you don't even know yourself anymore, so we're even." A genuine smile, the first in days he could remember, formed on Michael's lips. "Why are you doing this for me?" Emma pulled up a chair and sat next to him. "My grandmother used to say that angels don't descend from heaven with golden wings. They appear disguised as people needing help to test if we still have humanity in our hearts. What if I'm a dangerous guy, a criminal?" She laughed, a crystalline sound that filled the small restaurant. "You ate my fish and chips like it was the most delicious thing in the world, thanked me about 15 times, and have been apologizing for 2 hours for occupying a table. Dude, if you're a criminal, you're the most polite one I've ever seen." That night, Michael took his first shower in days in the small bathroom in the back. Emma had left a clean towel, glycerin soap, and a change of clothes that had belonged to her ex-boyfriend, a relationship that had ended 6 months ago when she discovered he was cheating on her with the manicurist from the salon on the corner. The room was simple: a single bed, a small wardrobe, a window that looked out to the backyard where the washing machine and clothesline were. But for Michael, accustomed, though he couldn't remember how he knew this, to large and empty spaces, that little corner offered something he hadn't felt in a long time: comfort. And you? Have you ever been lucky enough to meet someone who extended a hand when you needed it most? Or would you be capable of doing the same for a stranger? Over the following days, a peculiar routine was established. Michael woke up early, even before Emma arrived, and was already helping with small tasks when she opened the restaurant. He had insisted on contributing somehow, and she had accepted on the condition that he also ate his meals there. It was during these days that both Emma and Michael began to notice intriguing contradictions. Michael demonstrated impressive knowledge of administration. When he saw Emma struggling with inventory control, he naturally took over the task and organized everything with an efficiency that surprised even the most experienced waitress in the restaurant, Mrs. Nancy. "Girl," said Mrs. Nancy to Emma while they watched Michael reorganize the storage room, "that boy understands more about business than many business owners I know." Michael also had an extraordinarily refined palate. On the 3rd day, he tasted Wednesday's clam chowder and immediately said, "It's missing a pinch of fresh thyme and a touch of white wine in the base." Emma looked at him surprised. "How do you know?" "I don't know," he replied, looking as confused as she was. "I just know." They tried his suggestion, and the result was so superior that Chef Arnold, a 60-year-old man who had commanded the seaside diner's kitchen for 2 decades, declared, "This boy has gold in his palate." The nights were the most intimate moment between them. After the restaurant closed, they would sit in the kitchen, Emma telling stories of her life while Michael listened, absorbing every detail as if he were memorizing a map to find his way back home. Emma talked about her grandmother, Rosa, 78 years old, who lived in a small apartment in East Los Angeles and was fighting diabetes and high blood pressure. About her dream of one day having her own restaurant, a place where she could mix traditional family recipes with modern touches. About how she worked twice a week cleaning offices to supplement her income. "And you?" she asked on one of those nights, while they shared a glass of wine left over from a table. "Do you feel like you had dreams before?" Michael was silent for a long moment, swirling the wine in his glass. "I feel like I had many, but I don't know if anything was really my choice. It's like I lived the life others chose for me." When he said this, Emma noticed a subtle change in his expression. For a brief moment, he seemed to carry the weight of years of frustrations, as if his memory was trying to push something important to the surface. "Maybe," she said softly, "this memory loss is an opportunity, a chance to discover who you really are, without the weight of who you were." Michael looked at her then in a different way, not just with gratitude, but with something that made Emma's heart race: admiration, affection, and something she didn't dare name yet. On the fourth night, when she was preparing to leave, Michael gently held her wrist. "Emma," he said, his voice low and full of emotion, "I don't know who I was before, but I know that whatever I discover about myself these days with you have been the most real I can remember." She felt her cheeks flush, but didn't pull her hand away. "Michael, you don't need to say anything," he interrupted. "I just wanted you to know." That night, Emma went home with a confused heart. Was she falling in love with a ghost? With someone who could wake up the next day and remember a family, a wife, a completely different life? But when she watched Michael, the way he treated each customer with genuine respect, how he helped Mrs. Nancy carry heavy trays, how he smiled when he tasted food he liked, she knew she was getting to know the essence of that man. And that essence was beautiful. The second week of Michael at the restaurant brought a growing intimacy that scared and enchanted Emma in equal measure. They had developed a natural synchrony. He anticipated what she needed before she even asked, and she understood his silent moods as if they were old friends. It was on a Tuesday morning that everything changed. Michael was helping Arnold in the kitchen, preparing mise en place for lunch, when a man in a suit entered the restaurant. Tall, graying hair, executive appearance, he looked around with the air of someone clearly out of his usual environment. Emma approached to serve him. "Good morning. Table for how many?" "Actually," said the man, "I'd like some information. I'm a journalist from the San Diego Tribune. I'm investigating the disappearance of a businessman, Michael Thompson, from Thompson and Associates seafood chain. Has anyone seen him in the area?" Emma's blood ran cold. She instinctively looked toward the kitchen, where Michael was with his back turned, chopping onions. "No, I don't know anything about that," she lied, her voice coming out higher than normal. The journalist showed a photo on his tablet. "He disappeared a week ago. The family is offering a considerable reward for information about his whereabouts." Emma pretended to study the photo, although she knew exactly who it was. The man in the image wore an impeccable suit, perfectly styled hair, a corporate smile for the camera. But they were the same blue eyes, the same face shape, the same aristocratic bone structure. "Sorry, but I've never seen this man," she said, returning the tablet. The journalist left his card. "If you hear anything, please get in touch. The family is desperate." After he left, Emma stood there holding the card with trembling hands. Michael was Michael Thompson, heir to a fortune, owner of one of the largest seafood chains in the country. And her, she was a waitress from East LA who barely finished high school. "Em, are you okay?" Michael appeared beside her, cleaning his hands on an improvised apron. "You look pale." She looked at him, at that man who helped her wash dishes, who slept in a little room in the back, who ate fish and chips as if it were haute cuisine. How to tell him he had a family, a company, an entire life waiting for him? "I'm fine," she lied. Again, just tired. But Michael knew her well enough now to notice when she wasn't being honest. He gently held her face, forcing her to look him in the eyes. "Emma, what happened?" At that moment, she had to make a decision that would change everything. Being who you are, would you tell the truth immediately, or try to protect that moment of happiness a little longer? She chose silence. During the following days, Emma struggled with a crushing weight in her chest. Every smile from Michael, every moment of shared happiness, every loving look he gave her became a stab of guilt. Michael, in turn, noticed that something had changed, but interpreted Emma's sudden distance as a sign that maybe he was being presumptuous about her feelings. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked one night, after she refused the invitation to have evening coffee together. "No, Michael, it's not about you." "Then what is it?" She almost gave in, almost told him everything. But then she imagined his expression when he discovered who he was. imagined him remembering his real life, his real world, and realizing that a waitress was good for a temporary adventure, but not forever. I just need some time to think. On Friday of the second week, fate made the decision for her. Michael was serving a table. He had started helping with customers too, who loved his politeness and attention, when a man of business appearance entered the restaurant, accompanied by an elegant woman. Emma immediately recognized them from photos she had obsessively searched for on the internet during the past days. They were Michael's parents. The man looked around the simple environment with evident discomfort, while the woman seemed to be on the verge of tears. They approached a table, but before Emma could intercept them, Michael's mother saw him. The scream she let out made the entire restaurant stop. "Michael!" Michael turned, the plate he was holding escaping from his hands and shattering on the floor. For a moment, he just looked at the woman, confused. Then, as if someone had turned on a switch in his mind, his memories began to return in waves. Company, family, pressure, expectations, endless meetings, loneliness in luxurious apartments, the bicycle accident, the argument with his mother. Everything came back at once, like a file being uncompressed in his mind. Emma watched from the kitchen corner while Michael's parents hugged him, everyone talking at the same time, tears streaming down their faces. She saw the exact moment when Michael remembered who he was, and the exact moment when he realized the abyss between his world and hers. Their eyes met across the restaurant. In them, she saw a mixture of panic, guilt, and something that could be shame. Michael Thompson was back, and the man she had fallen in love with, that vulnerable and real Michael who joked with Mrs. Nancy and helped wash dishes, maybe had never really existed. "Michael, son, you can't imagine the despair we went through." His mother, Margaret, held his face as if he would dissolve again. The entire company stopped. We hired private investigators, offered a reward. "Mum, Michael looked alternately at his parents and at Emma. "I can explain." "You don't need to explain anything," said his father, Robert. "What's important is that you're okay. Let's go home now. You need to see a doctor, and then we have so much to talk about regarding the company." Emma turned and went into the kitchen, unable to watch that scene anymore. Her hands shook as she washed already clean dishes just to have something to do. A few minutes later, Michael appeared in the kitchen. "Emma." She didn't turn around. "It's time for you to go, Michael. Your family is waiting." "Look at me, please." She turned, trying to maintain composure, but he could see the tears she was fighting to contain. "I didn't plan any of this," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "When I lost my memory, when you took me in, it was the most real thing I've ever lived in my life. And now? What's changed now that you remember who you are?" Michael opened his mouth to respond, but couldn't find the right words. How to explain that remembering his previous life was like waking up from a good dream and discovering he was living a nightmare? "I need to go," he said finally. "But this isn't the end, Emma. It can't be." She forced a sad smile. "Michael, you're the heir to an empire. I'm a waitress who didn't even finish college. Let's be realistic. Those things don't matter. To you, maybe not, but to your world, they do matter." Michael wanted to argue, but his father's voice calling from the front interrupted any attempt to continue the conversation. "Michael, let's go." He hesitated for one more moment, memorizing every feature of Emma's face, then leaned in and kissed her forehead softly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." And then he was gone, leaving through the front door in a black Mercedes that was waiting for him, leaving Emma alone with a broken heart and an empty little room in the back of the restaurant. The first days after Michael's return were the hardest Emma had faced in a long time. She tried to maintain the normal routine at the restaurant, but every corner held a memory of him. The table where he sat for breakfast, the stove where he learned to make the special seasoning for the clam chowder, the small room in the back that she avoided walking past, Mrs. Nancy, who had grown fond of the boy during his stay, immediately noticed Emma's melancholic state. "Girl, you've had a funeral face for a week. What happened to that handsome guy?" Emma made up a story about Michael finding his family and leaving for another state. It was easier than explaining the complicated truth about lost identities and different worlds. "Ah, so that's what I saw between you two," said Mrs. Nancy, shaking her head wisely. "Love, when it strikes, doesn't choose time or place, right?" Emma pretended she was too busy organizing the spices to respond. Meanwhile, Michael tried to resume his life from before, but discovered it was impossible. Being in the luxurious apartment in La Jolla, after 2 weeks sleeping in the cozy little room of the restaurant, was like living in a cold and impersonal hotel. The endless company meetings, which before had been tolerable, now seemed like a prison of empty words and meaningless numbers. "Michael, where is your head?" asked his father during a meeting about expanding the chain to Northern California. "You've been absent since you came back." "Sorry, Dad. I'm still readjusting. The doctor said you had no permanent neurological damage. Maybe it's time to stop leaning on that excuse." The coldness of Robert's observation hurt more than Michael expected. During his absence, he had forgotten how unaffectionate his family was, how everything revolved around business, how feelings were seen as weakness. "You're right," said Michael, surprising his father. "Maybe it's time to change some things." At night, alone in his apartment, Michael looked at the panoramic view of the city through the huge glass windows. San Diego stretched before him like a sea of lights, but he could only think of a small window of a little room in the back of a humble restaurant. He picked up the phone several times to call Emma, but always gave up. What would he say? "Hi, it's me, the millionaire who pretended to be poor without knowing." How to explain that those days at the restaurant had been more real than his entire previous life? And you, have you ever felt so lost between who you are and who you should be? Have you ever had to choose between what your heart wants and what the world expects? Emma, meanwhile, began obsessively researching Michael and his family on the internet. She discovered that Thompson and Associates wasn't just a common seafood chain. It was a family empire that moved billions, with participations in various sectors of the economy. Michael wasn't just rich, he was impossible. The photos she found always showed him impeccable at social events, next to other people from the same circle. There were several photos with an elegant blonde woman, who, according to the captions, was his companion at various events. Emma's heart tightened, imagining that he probably already had someone in his life. It was during one of these nights of obsessive research that Emma discovered something that would change everything. In an old interview with Michael from a few years ago, he talked about his personal dreams. "One day," he said in the article, "I want to have a small and cozy restaurant where people feel at home. I'm tired of the coldness of big business. I want something real." She reread the sentence 3 times. Michael had said exactly this to her during one of their nightly conversations at the restaurant, as if it were a distant and impossible dream. At the time, she thought he was just fantasizing. Now she realized it was a real dream, an old one, perhaps the only truly his own dream he had. That same week, Emma received an unexpected call. "Hello, this is Thompson and Associates. I'd like to speak with Ms. Emma Rodriguez." Her heart raced. This is she. "Ms. Rodriguez, my name is Carlos, executive assistant to Mr. Robert Thompson. Mr. Thompson would like to speak with you about a delicate matter involving his son Michael. Would a meeting this afternoon be possible?" Emma felt the ground move under her feet. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Ma'am, it's important. Mr. Robert is very worried about his son. We can meet at a location of your preference." 2 hours later, Emma was sitting in a coffee shop near the restaurant, nervous, waiting for the man she had seen only once, on the day they took Michael away. Robert Thompson arrived punctually, wearing an impeccable suit that probably cost more than Emma's annual salary. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said, greeting her politely. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Mr. Thompson." She tried to maintain composure. Robert ordered coffee and went straight to the point. "I'll be frank with you. My son hasn't been well since he returned home. He barely speaks to us, practically abandoned the company, spends days locked in his apartment. Frankly, I'm worried." Emma didn't know what to say. Why was he telling her this? "I discovered that during the period when he lost his memory, he stayed here, at your restaurant, that you took care of him." Robert paused, studying her attentively. "I need to understand what happened between you two." "Nothing improper happened, sir. I'm not insinuating misconduct," he interrupted. "I'm trying to understand why my son seems to have left his heart here when he left." Robert's words were like a punch to the stomach. "I don't know what you're talking about, sir." Robert sighed deeply. "Ms. Rodriguez, I built an empire from nothing. I know how to recognize when someone is lying. My son is in love with you, isn't he?" Emma felt her cheeks flush. How to deny the obvious? "Mr. Thompson, your son and we're from different worlds." "Yes, you are," he agreed, surprising her. "But that doesn't diminish what you feel, does it?" She shook her head, unable to speak. Robert continued, "I spent my whole life trying to mold Michael into what I thought he should be. A businessman, an heir, someone who would follow in my footsteps. But in the last 2 months, watching him wither away, I realized that maybe I tried to transform him into something he never wanted to be. Why are you telling me this?" "Because, Ms. Rodriguez, for the first time in his life, my son seemed genuinely happy when we found him here that day. And now he seems to be dying inside." Robert took a sip of coffee. "Tell me about those days you spent together." Emma hesitated, but something in Robert's voice made her trust. She told about how she had found Michael lost, about how he had adapted to life at the restaurant, about his dedication to helping, about the nightly conversations, about how he had fallen in love with the simplicity of that life. "He really seemed happy," she finished, tears in her eyes. "It was as if he was finally being himself." Robert listened in silence, occasionally nodding. When she finished, he remained quiet for a long moment. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said finally, "can I make a confession? I've always known that Michael wasn't born for corporate life. Since he was little, he preferred playing in the kitchen with the cook to playing with expensive toys. As a teenager, he spent more time in the city's restaurants studying menus than studying business administration. But I was stubborn. I thought I knew what was best for him. And now I realize that a happy son is worth more than an empire." Robert leaned forward. "I need your help." "My help?" "Michael is slowly killing himself with sadness. He needs to know he has your permission to be happy, that you don't judge him for his origin, that you don't see him just as a millionaire playboy who had fun playing poor." Emma was shocked. "I never thought that about him." "But he doesn't know that. In his mind, you must be thinking you were used, deceived, that when he recovered his memory, he realized you have no future together." "And we don't," she murmured. Robert smiled for the first time since he arrived. "Ms. Rodriguez, can I tell you a secret? I also came from humble origins. My family sold hot dogs at a Venice beach stand. I met Michael's mother when I was still building my first restaurant. She was also from a simple family, daughter of a factory worker." Emma looked at him surprised. "The difference," Robert continued, "is that we met before the money came. You two met despite the money, and I can guarantee that's much more valuable." "Mr. Thompson—" "Call me Robert," he interrupted. "After all, if Michael's plans work out, we'll be family soon." "What plans?" Robert smiled mysteriously. He'll have to tell you that personally, but I can say it involves a restaurant, a radical life change, and a very special woman for whom he's willing to leave everything behind." When Robert said goodbye an hour later, Emma's head was spinning. Had she misjudged Michael? Was he really willing to leave his life of luxury for her? That night, alone at home taking care of her grandmother, she rethought the entire conversation. Mrs. Rosa, noticing her granddaughter's agitation, decided to give her unsolicited opinion. "Emma, this dead dog face doesn't suit you. Tell me what's happening." Emma told everything to her grandmother, who listened with the patience of someone who had decades of experience in matters of the heart. "My granddaughter," said Mrs. Rosa when she finished, "you're letting pride get in the way of your happiness. This boy made you happy, didn't he?" "He did, Grandma. Very much." "And you made him happy?" "I think so." "Then what's the problem? That he has money? My daughter, in a life that's sometimes so hard, when happiness knocks on our door, we can't be picky about the color of the frame." "But Grandma, what if it goes wrong? What if he gets tired of the simple life?" Mrs. Rosa laughed, a joyful sound that filled the small apartment. "What if it goes right? What if you're happy together? Emma, you've spent your whole life taking care of everyone. Me, the restaurant customers, even a stranger who showed up lost. At your door. Don't you think it's time to let someone take care of you too?" Her grandmother's words echoed in Emma's mind for days. She began to rethink the entire situation, questioning whether she hadn't been hasty in her judgments. 2 weeks passed. Emma tried to move on, but every Tuesday, when she made the special clam chowder with the seasoning Michael had suggested, she couldn't help looking at the door, hoping he would appear. Michael also fought against the same impossible hope. He drove through the restaurant area several times, but never had the courage to enter. How to explain to Emma that he had discovered that simple life was exactly what he had always wanted, but never had the courage to seek? Life went on, but neither really lived during that period. 2 months after Michael's departure, Emma was having a particularly difficult day. Her grandmother had felt sick at dawn, needed to be taken to the hospital, and medical expenses were consuming all her savings. Mrs. Nancy had left early, and she was alone at the restaurant during lunch hours. When the door opened at 2 in the afternoon, she didn't even look up, concentrated on calculating bills at the register. "Sorry, we're already closing," she said automatically. "Not even for a special customer." The voice made her freeze. She slowly raised her eyes, and there he was. Michael. But it was a different Michael from the impeccable executive who had left 2 months before. He wore jeans, a simple shirt, slightly disheveled hair. He looked younger, more relaxed, more like the Michael she had known. "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I wanted lunch," he said, sitting at his usual table. "If possible, clam chowder, with that special seasoning." Emma hesitated, then went to get a plate in the kitchen. Her hands trembled slightly as she served the food. Michael ate in silence, savoring each spoonful as if he were satisfying homesickness for a lost home. "How is your grandmother?" he asked finally. "How did you—" She stopped, remembering Michael's ability to find things out when he wanted. "She's fine. Had a blood pressure crisis, but she's stable." Michael nodded, finishing the meal. "How much do I owe?" $12. He placed a $50 bill on the table. "Keep the change." "Michael, I don't need your charity." "It's not charity," he said softly. "It's back payment for everything." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. There were so many things to be said, but neither knew where to start. "Why did you come back?" she asked finally. Michael sighed, fidgeting with the napkin. "Because in the last 2 months I tried to go back to my life from before and discovered I can't live like that anymore. I discovered that I'm not Michael Thompson, heir to Thompson and Associates. I'm the Michael you met here. This is who I really am. Michael, you can't just pretend your previous life doesn't exist." "I'm not pretending." I resigned from my position at the company. Emma looked at him surprised. "You did what?" "I transferred controlling interest to my father and withdrew from the company." I'm using my share of the inheritance to invest in something new." He paused, looking directly into her eyes. "In something real." "Michael, let me finish," he interrupted. "I know you'll think it's crazy, but I want to open a restaurant. Not a culinary empire, not a franchise. A small, cozy restaurant where people feel at home. Like this one, like you made me feel." Emma shook her head. "You can't throw your whole life away because of you." Michael stood up, approaching her. "Emma, those 2 weeks were the only time in my entire life when I was truly happy. For the first time, I wasn't trying to meet others' expectations. I was being myself. But your family, your responsibilities? My family never really needed me, just my last name and my submission. As for responsibilities, I discovered I have only one that really matters: being happy and making the person I love happy." The words hung in the air between them. Emma felt her heart beating so hard she was sure Michael could hear it. "You don't even know me well," she whispered. "I know you better than any person I've ever known in my life," Michael replied, gently holding her face. "I know your kindness, your strength, your dreams. I know you dream of having a place of your own where you can mix tradition with innovation. I know you care for your grandmother with unconditional love. I know you see the best in people, even when they can't see it in themselves." Tears began to escape from Emma's eyes. "Michael, we're from different worlds." "No," he said firmly. "I thought my whole life that I came from a different world than yours, but I discovered that was never my world. My world is where you are. It's here, in this restaurant, in this kitchen, where I felt at home for the first time in my life." Then, with a courage that surprised them both, Michael knelt right there in the middle of the small restaurant. "Emma Rodriguez," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I don't have a ring. I don't have a prepared speech. I don't have guarantees about the future. But I have one certainty. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up every day by your side. I want to serve food made with love to people who care. I want to grow old listening to your stories about your grandmother and creating our own stories." And if it were you there, in Emma's place, would you be able to believe that true love can overcome any social difference? That sometimes the best things in life come exactly when we're not looking? Emma looked at that man kneeling before her, the same man she had found lost and confused, whom she had welcomed into her heart, whom she had learned to love precisely for his vulnerability and authenticity. Now he was there, not as a charming prince coming to save her from a humble life, but as a man who had found his true self through her love. "Get up from there, Michael," she said, extending her hands to help him. "If you're going to propose to me, at least do it right." Michael smiled, standing up but keeping her hands in his. So, said Emma, smiling through tears. "I think you better tell me properly about this restaurant story, because if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. With my grandmother's recipes, with your refined palate, and with lots of love." Michael kissed her then, right there in the middle of the restaurant where it all began, sealing not just a promise of marriage, but the certainty that they had found in each other not just a great love, but a true home. 6 months later, they opened Michael and Emma's seaside kitchen in a small space in the Gaslamp Quarter. It was exactly as Michael had dreamed: small, cozy, with the aroma of homemade seasonings and the sound of warm conversations. Traditional recipes from Emma's family mixed with the technical precision Michael brought from the corporate world, creating perfect harmony. The restaurant quickly became the neighborhood hotspot. The decoration mixed rustic elements, like the cast-iron pots Mrs. Rosa brought from her house, with modern touches Michael had learned in his corporate travels. The walls were painted in ocean tones and decorated with photos of Emma's family and some plants that brought life to the environment. The menu was a unique fusion: Grandma Rosa's clam chowder, with Michael's special touch, A lobster mac and cheese he had learned on a trip to Maine, but adapted with California spices, and desserts that were family recipes passed down from generation to generation. Each dish had a story, and the waiters were trained to tell these stories to customers. Michael discovered he had a natural talent for service. His refined education and genuine interest in people created instant connections with customers. He remembered names, preferences, asked about families. Soon, the restaurant had a loyal clientele that came not just for the food, but for the sense of belonging. Emma was in her element. Finally, she had a space where she could express her culinary creativity, where she could implement her ideas about hospitality, where she could create the welcoming environment she had always dreamed of. She constantly developed new dishes, always testing them first on Michael, who had become her official food critic. "This seasoning is almost perfect," he would say on an afternoon, tasting a new version of the seafood bisque. "But how about a little more Old Bay and maybe a few drops of lemon?" She would try his suggestion, and the result was always superior. They had developed a culinary partnership that perfectly mirrored their love partnership, complementary, respectful, each bringing their strengths to create something greater than the sum of the parts. Grandma Rosa recovered completely and became the restaurant star, telling stories to customers while supervising every dish that left the kitchen. She had gained new vitality since moving to a larger apartment near the restaurant, paid for by Michael, but presented as a business investment to preserve the lady's pride. "You know, my daughter," she said to Emma one night after closing, "I always knew you'd do something big in life. I just didn't imagine it would be like this, with this blonde boy who appeared out of nowhere." Mrs. Rosa had developed a special fondness for Michael. She treated him like the grandson she never had, teaching him old recipes, telling family stories, giving advice on how to deal with Emma on difficult days. "Michael," she would say, stirring a pot of caramel sauce, "women are like seasoning. You need patience to discover the right measure. Too much salt ruins it, too much sugar makes it cloying. But when you get it right, it becomes poetry," Michael would complete, smiling. Mrs. Nancy also came to work with them, bringing her experience and maternal affection. She became the official floor manager, commanding the other employees with an iron fist and soft heart. Her experience at Seaside Diner was invaluable, and she knew every trick to make a customer feel special. "Mrs. Nancy," a new customer asked once, "what's the secret of this place?" "Love, my dear," she answered without hesitation. "Every dish that leaves this kitchen is seasoned with love, and when you season with love, the taste is different." The first year of the restaurant was like an extended honeymoon for Michael and Emma. They worked side by side every day, discovering together the pleasures and challenges of running their own business. There were occasional fights about suppliers, about the menu, about decoration, but they always ended with laughter and kisses in the kitchen after the restaurant closed. "You're getting too bossy," Michael would joke after an argument about choosing the new fishmonger. "And you're getting too stubborn," Emma would respond, but her eyes sparkled with love. Michael never regretted leaving the family empire. He woke up every day excited to get to the restaurant, to see satisfied customers, to work alongside the woman he loved. He discovered that true wealth was in every satisfied smile from a customer, in every intimate moment with Emma after closing, in every hug his beloved mother-in-law gave him when she approved a new dish. During the wedding ceremony, simple and intimate, held at the restaurant itself after closing, Michael made a toast that perfectly summarized his journey. "Sometimes," he said, looking at Emma with infinite love in his eyes, "you need to get completely lost to find exactly where you belong. I got lost to find myself here, with you in this family that welcomed me not for what I had, but for who I am." Emma responded to the toast. "And sometimes destiny doesn't arrive in a Mercedes, but on a bicycle, broken, confused, but real. Exactly as love should be." They sealed the union with a kiss, surrounded by the aroma of homemade seasonings, the warmth of dear friends, and the certainty that they had found not just love, but the true meaning of home. And when guests asked how they were sure that love was real, Michael always answered, smiling, "Because she loved me when I didn't even know who I was. And when I found out, I realized that who I really am is who she always saw in me." Epilogue. 1 year later. On the restaurant's first anniversary, Michael and Emma organized a special party. They invited all the loyal customers, suppliers who had become friends, and of course, both families. Robert and Margaret had become regular patrons, coming to dinner at least once a week, and always bringing friends to try our son's restaurant. "You know," said Michael during the party toast, holding Emma's hand, "exactly 1.5 years ago, I was a man lost in every sense. Lost on the streets of San Diego, lost in life, lost in expectations that weren't mine. And then I found not just a person who welcomed me, but a new way of living." Emma, wearing a simple dress that made her glow, added, "And I discovered that true love doesn't come with an instruction manual or warranty certificate. Sometimes it appears in the most unexpected way, disguised as a problem, to teach us that life is made of courage to start over." The party lasted until the early hours. Mrs. Rosa told her classic stories. Mrs. Nancy led an impromptu dance in the kitchen, and Robert surprised everyone by playing guitar and singing old beach songs he knew from his youth. That night, after the last guest left and they finished cleaning the restaurant, Michael and Emma sat in the backyard, looking at the stars and planning the future. "You know what I was thinking?" said Emma, nestled in Michael's arm. "What?" "Maybe it's time to think about expanding the family." Michael smiled, kissing the top of her head. "Are you talking about a second restaurant, or something more small that cries at dawn?" She laughed. "Both, but first the second restaurant. How about Venice Beach, near where I grew up? Then let's take the kitchen to more people," Michael agreed. "After all, everyone deserves a place that feels like home." Years later, when Michael and Emma's seaside kitchen had become a small chain of 3 restaurants, all maintaining the same family and welcoming spirit of the original, people still asked Michael if he missed his previous life. He always answered, looking at Emma, now mother to 2 beautiful children, Sophie with blonde hair like her father and green eyes like her mother, and Matt with brown hair and blue eyes, and said, "How can I miss a life that was never really mine?" 10 years later, the legacy continues. Michael and Emma's office occupied the 2nd floor of the first restaurant, in the Gaslamp Quarter. It was a simple space, with 2 rustic wooden desks, a comfortable sofa where the children played after school, and walls covered with photos that told the story of the family they had built. That October morning, Michael was reviewing 3rd quarter numbers when Sophie, now 8 years old, came running up the stairs. "Daddy, Daddy, there's a man downstairs who wants to talk to you. He said he's from a TV show." Michael smiled, messing up his daughter's blonde hair. "And where's Mommy?" "Teaching Matt how to make brownies in the kitchen. He's all messy." Michael went down to find an elegant man waiting in the reception area, accompanied by a film crew. The man approached with a warm smile. "Mr. Michael Thompson? I'm Marcus Almeida, from the show Success Stories. We'd like to tell your story to America." "I don't know if our story is that interesting," said Michael humbly. "Let me disagree," Marcus replied. "An heir who abandons an empire to find happiness in a simple restaurant. A couple who transformed love into a successful business while maintaining family values. That's inspiring." Emma appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron, followed by Matt, 6 years old, with chocolate from head to toe. "Mum, can I talk on TV?" Matt asked excitedly. "We'll see, my love," said Emma, hugging her son. "First you need to take a bath." After some negotiation, Michael and Emma agreed to the report. The filming took place on a Tuesday, when the restaurant was closed to the public, but they prepared some special dishes for the cameras. "Tell us," said Marcus during the interview. "What was the moment when you knew this was the right path?" Michael and Emma looked at each other, smiling with complicity. "It was when I realized," said Michael, "that waking up every day to work with the people I love wasn't work, it was privilege. And for me," added Emma, "it was when I saw that we could build something of our own without losing our essence. Michael never tried to change me, and I never tried to mold him into a version of someone I thought he should be." The camera captured intimate moments. Mrs. Rosa, now 88 years old, teaching Sophie how to make apple pie. Michael and Matt playing soccer in the small backyard. Emma and Sophie cooking together, laughing when the cake batter splattered on the wall. "And the challenges?" asked Marcus. "It must have been difficult to reconcile such different worlds." "The only different worlds were those that existed in our heads," Michael replied. "In reality, both Emma and I wanted the same things: a united family, meaningful work, the ability to make a difference in people's lives." During filming, the show documented a typical day for the Thompson-Rodriguez family. The children woke up early and had breakfast at the restaurant before going to school. Emma supervised the kitchen of the first restaurant, while Michael handled the administration of the 3 establishments. Mrs. Rosa arrived around 10 to supervise, actually, to tell stories to newer employees and ensure every dish came out perfect. "The recipe for our special seasoning," Mrs. Rosa told the camera, stirring a pot of clam chowder, "isn't in an exact measurement. It's here," she tapped her chest, "in the care you put into the food." In the afternoon, the children returned from school straight to the restaurant. They did homework at the dining room tables, while Emma prepared dinner and Michael helped them with math between meetings with suppliers. "Our children are raised in the middle of extended family," Emma explained. "All the employees are uncles and aunts. They learn about work, about respect, about how to treat people well." Sophie, always sharp, interrupted. "And we also learn to cook. I want to be a chef when I grow up, like Mom and Dad." Matt, shyer, whispered to the camera, "I want to be a soccer player, but I also know how to make brownies." The report also showed the responsible expansion Michael and Emma had made. The second restaurant, opened in Venice Beach, employed several young people from the area in their first jobs. The third, in Santa Monica, preserved an old building that had been abandoned. "Our growth," Michael explained, "was always thought about how we can help more people, whether offering jobs or bringing a little comfort to neighborhoods that need it. Each new unit," Emma completed, "maintains the soul of the original. It's not franchising, it's family extension." The show also followed a monthly meeting Michael and Emma held with all employees from the 3 restaurants. It was a tradition that started in the 2nd year of operation. "We want to hear from you," Emma said to the group of 40 employees gathered. "Ideas, problems, suggestions. This success belongs to all of us." Carlos, the chef from the Venice Beach restaurant, raised his hand. "I have a recipe my mom used to make, a different fish stew. Can I test it?" "Of course, bring the recipe next week," Michael replied. "And Carlos, how about inviting your mom to teach us personally?" That's how it worked. Each employee contributed not just work, but their stories, their family recipes, their traditions. The restaurant's menu was a patchwork quilt of the origins of each person who worked there. During the final interview, Marcus asked the question everyone expected. "Michael, did you ever regret leaving the family empire?" Michael looked at Emma, who was holding Matt in her lap while Sophie played with a doll on the floor. "Do you know the difference between an empire and a kingdom?" he asked. "An empire is conquered, a kingdom is built. I spent the first 30 years of my life trying to manage an empire that wasn't mine. Now I build my kingdom every day, with the people who chose me and whom I chose. And you, Emma? How is it to have gone from waitress to successful businesswoman?" Emma laughed, a sound that still made Michael's heart race after so many years. I never left the condition of waitress, she said. I still serve tables when needed, still wash dishes when someone's missing, still take care of customers as if they were family. What changed is that now I do it in my own place, with my own family. The filming ended with a scene of the family dining at the restaurant, after all employees had gone home. It was a ritual they maintained. Once a week, they dined alone at the place where it all began. "Daddy," asked Sophie, playing with her fork, "why did you and Mommy get married?" Michael and Emma exchanged that look that couples in love for a long time know well. Complete communication without words. "Because," Michael replied, "your mother taught me that home isn't a place. It's a person, and she became my home. And because," Emma added, "your father showed me that dreams can come true when we find someone willing to dream together." Matt, always practical, said, "So you got married because you like each other a lot?" "Yes, my love," said Emma, kissing her son's forehead. "We like each other very much, and we like you very much too." The Report aired 3 months later and became one of the show's most watched. Hundreds of people visited the restaurants after seeing the story, and Michael and Emma received invitations to speak about entrepreneurship, relationships, and family. But for them, the true measure of success remained the same as always: the customers' smiles, the children's laughter playing in the restaurant's backyard, Mrs. Rosa's hug approving a new dish, and the moment when, every night after work, they looked at each other and knew they had chosen right. "You know," Michael said to Emma one of those nights as they walked hand in hand through the gaslamp quarter streets, the children running ahead, "sometimes I wonder where we'd be if I hadn't lost my memory." "Probably," Emma replied, squeezing his hand, "each in our own world, not knowing something better existed." "So thank you, unknown golden retriever," Michael murmured, looking at the starry sky. Emma laughed. "Thank you, broken bicycle. Thank you, accident that wasn't an accident. Thank you, destiny that doesn't believe in coincidence." And so, hand in hand, they walked home, knowing they had built not just a successful business, but a love that had withstood the test of time and differences, proving that sometimes the best things in life come disguised in the most unexpected ways. 15 years later, the circle completes. The spring morning was especially beautiful when Emma woke up early to prepare the family's breakfast, as she had done every day for 15 years. At 43, she maintained the same contagious energy as always, though now there were small laugh lines around the green eyes Michael loved so much. Sophie, now 13, was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework while chewing toast with homemade jam made by her great-grandmother Rosa. She had inherited her parents' intelligence and the maternal family's determination, showing herself to be a responsible teenager who already talked about studying culinary arts. "Mum," she said, looking over her books, "the history teacher wants me to write a paper about family entrepreneurship. Can I tell our story?" Emma smiled, serving fresh coffee. "Of course, dear. But remember to include that the most important thing isn't the businesses we built, but the family we formed." Matt, 11 years old, came running down the stairs with his brown hair disheveled and his school uniform half crooked. He had inherited his father's calm temperament, but the restless energy typical of his age. "Is Dad at the restaurant?" he asked, grabbing his backpack. "Yes, he went early to handle some papers for the new unit," Emma replied. "But don't forget, today he's leaving early to take you to soccer practice." Michael had kept his promise to be present in his children's lives. Even with 4 restaurants running, he never missed one of Matt's soccer games or one of Sophie's school presentations. He had learned through his own parents' mistakes that success without family to share it with was nothing but an empty achievement. That same day, by coincidence, or would it be destiny, Michael was reviewing contracts for the 4th restaurant when his phone rang. "Michael, this is from a shelter in Riverside. We found a man on the street without documents, apparently with memory loss. We found your card in his pocket." Michael felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? He was holding this card when police found him. He repeated your name several times. Do you know him? I'm coming there, said Michael, already grabbing his car keys. An hour later, Michael was facing a man of approximately 60 years, greying hair, simple but clean clothes, confused blue eyes that reminded him of something familiar. Are you Michael? The man asked with a hesitant voice. I am. And you? Do you remember your name? The man shook his head, frustrated. I only know that you're important to me somehow. Your card was with me, but I don't remember how or why. Michael sat beside him, a strange feeling of déjà vu washing over him. How did you get hurt? The doctors said I hit my head. I woke up in the hospital 3 days ago, not remembering anything. I just knew I needed to find you. On impulse, Michael decided to do the same thing Emma had done for him years ago. Want to come with me? I have a place where you can stay until we remember who you are. The man smiled, the first expression of relief since Michael arrived. That would be very kind of you. Michael took him directly to the original restaurant in the gas lamp quarter. Emma was in the kitchen when she saw them enter. Em, called Michael, I want you to meet... Well, we don't know his name yet. He showed up with my card without memory. Emma looked at the man and immediately felt the same compassion she had felt for Michael years ago. Of course he can stay. Let's prepare a hot meal for you. During the following days, the man, whom they affectionately began calling Mr. Joe, naturally integrated into the restaurant's routine. He helped with small tasks, chatted with customers, and all the employees adopted him as part of the family. It was Mrs. Rosa, now 93 years old but still lucid, who made the discovery. Michael, she said one afternoon, pulling him aside, don't you think Mr. Joe looks like someone? Michael looked at the man, who was helping Matt with homework. Like whom, Grandma Rosa? Like you, boy, especially the eyes, and there's something else. She paused, observing attentively. The way he seasons food. Today he helped me in the kitchen, and he has the same way you do of balancing seasonings. That night, Michael and Emma talked about the possibility of Mr. Joe being Michael's relative. The next day, without telling the man, Michael requested a DNA test. The result arrived a week later, 50% genetic compatibility. Mr. Joe was Robert Thompson's son. Michael was shocked. His father had had another son? How was this possible? He scheduled an urgent meeting with Robert, who turned pale when Michael told him the situation. My God, Robert murmured, falling into the chair. John Michael, you know him? Robert sighed deeply. He's the son I had before marrying your mother. His mother moved to the countryside when she discovered the pregnancy. I was young, irresponsible. I offered money, but she preferred to raise the child alone. I tried contact several times over the years, but she refused. Dad, you have another son and never told me. Michael, it was a difficult time in my life. When I met your mother, I decided I would be a different man. John Michael grew up knowing who I was, but his mother always said they didn't need me. Michael felt a mixture of anger and compassion. And now, he's without memory, without family. Now he has you. He has all of you, said Robert, looking around the restaurant where they were talking. Maybe destiny is giving our family a second chance. When Michael told Mr. Joe about the discovery, the man cried. Not from sadness, but from relief to finally have an identity, a family. Michael, he said with tears in his eyes. I'm your brother? Yes, my older brother. John Michael, now he vaguely remembered this name, hugged Michael tightly. Thank you for taking me in, even without knowing who I was. I learned that from the best person in the world, said Michael, looking at Emma. And now you're part of our family. John Michael's integration was natural. He became manager of the 4th restaurant, bringing a unique perspective from having always lived a simple life. Sophie and Matt immediately adopted him as Uncle John, and he became especially close to Mrs. Rosa, who said he had the soul of a real cook. Margaret took longer to accept the situation, but eventually recognized John Michael as part of the family. Robert, carrying decades of guilt, tried to make up for lost time, but John Michael, wise in his own way, said, "Robert, we can't change the past, but we can build a better future." 6 months after John Michael's arrival, the family was gathered to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the first restaurant. In addition to the nuclear family, Robert, Margaret, Mrs. Rosa, Mrs. Nancy were present, and all the employees, who were now more than 100 people, divided among the 4 units. 15 years, said Michael during the toast, and every day we discover that family isn't just who is born with us, but who we choose to share our journey with. John Michael, emotional, added, "And sometimes life teaches us it's never too late to start over, that memory losses can be perspective gains." Emma held Michael's hand and looked around the room full of dear faces. 15 years ago, Michael appeared in my life lost and confused. Today, he continues to surprise me, teaching me that true love is the kind that grows, that adapts, that welcomes. Sophie, now an eloquent teenager, said, "And we learned that family is like a recipe. You can follow the traditional one, but sometimes the best dishes come when you improvise with what you have at home." Matt, always practical even at 11, concluded, "And that everyone deserves a plate of food made with care and a family that accepts you the way you are." The party lasted until the early hours. There was music, dancing, and many stories told. When everyone finally left, Michael, Emma, the children, and John Michael stayed to clean up the restaurant. "You know," said John, Michael stacking chairs, "before losing my memory, I lived alone, worked at a job that gave me no pleasure, had no close friends. Maybe it was the best accident of my life." Michael laughed. "Seems like accidents with memory loss are a family specialty." "Maybe," said Emma, hugging both brothers. "It's the universe's way of showing us that sometimes we need to forget who we thought we were to discover who we really are." That night, after the children went to bed and John Michael retired to his apartment near the restaurant, Michael and Emma sat on the home balcony, watching the city that had united them. 15 years, Michael murmured. "Sometimes it seems like an eternity. Sometimes it seems like it was yesterday." "And do you regret anything?" asked Emma, playing with Michael's blonde hair that now had some silver strands. "I regret not losing my memory sooner," he said, laughing. "Maybe we would have found each other earlier. Maybe we weren't ready earlier," she reflected. "Maybe each of us needed to live our experiences before to be able to value what we have." Michael kissed her softly. "Do you think Sophie and Matt will follow our footsteps at the restaurant?" "I think they'll follow their own dreams, and we'll be there to support them, regardless of what they are. Just like you supported my dreams, like I supported yours. And if in 15 years they show up here with their own children?" Emma smiled, imagining the scene. "Then Mrs. Rosa, at 108 years old, will be in the kitchen teaching great-grandchildren how to make apple pie, and we, doting grandparents, will tell them how it all started with a bicycle accident, a memory loss, a plate of clam chowder, and lots of love." They stayed in silence, watching the stars. Michael thought about how his life had completely changed, not just once, but continuing to transform in unexpected ways. First, he had lost his memory and found Emma. Now, he had gained a brother who had also arrived, through memory loss. "Em," he said finally, "do you believe in destiny?" "I believe there are encounters that are more than coincidence, that some people enter our lives at the exact moment we need them." "Then we're lucky." "We're blessed," she corrected, "and responsible for taking good care of these blessings." Michael agreed, knowing she was right. They had received a second chance at happiness and had transformed it into something bigger than themselves. A legacy of love, family, and Welcome that had already touched hundreds of lives through the restaurants and would continue touching future generations. When they went in to sleep, Michael stopped in front of the bedroom mirror and observed himself. He saw a fulfilled man, complete, surrounded by love. A man who had found his place in the world not through inheritance or obligation, but through conscious choices and true love. "Thank you," he whispered to his reflection, to Emma already in bed, to the life they had built. Together, and somewhere in the city, John Michael said the same prayer of gratitude, knowing that regardless of how many memories he had lost, he had gained a family that loved him unconditionally. The circle was complete. But like every good story, this ending was just the beginning of many other stories yet to be written by the Thompson-Rodriguez family in the years to come. And you, who followed this journey from beginning to end, which moment touched your heart the most? Do you believe that true love can really overcome any social barrier? That sometimes we lose our identity to find our true essence? And that happiness often is in the simplest places and with the most genuine people? How would you react if destiny gave you a second chance to restart your life from scratch? And is it possible that the most important encounters in our lives are really casual? Or is there a greater force orchestrating these magical moments?